Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Focus on Health. I'm your host, Peggy Mello. Mary Beth McCue is our returning guest today. She is a registered dietitian who practices holistic nutrition in Latham and Saratoga. Welcome back, Mary Beth.
Hey, Peg.
Today's show, we're going to be talking about food, which is why we're standing up. We have all of this food in front of us. We're going to talk about the breakdown of food. If you just want to quickly summarize your background and where you work, and then we can go on from there.
Well, I'm a registered dietitian. I've worked for about 20 years in traditional, conventional nutrition and medicine, and now I work in a field of what's called holistic nutrition or integrative nutrition, functional nutrition. It's working with the function of foods and supplements to help people transition their health to more vitality. And it's a really fast-growing field. A lot of people are gravitating to it because they're not finding answers and ways to transition their health to a better state. So we thought when we were talking that we would talk about food, since there's so much confusion about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in the diet. You know, people don't know if they should be high protein, low fat, high carbohydrate, what types of foods should they eat. So today we're going to talk about each one of those macronutrients and what are the better choices to use in those food groups. So first of all, in the middle of the table, we have the carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are really one of the most, if not the most important macronutrient, because they give you energy and vitality. And another very important component of this group is that you get the phytonutrients from carbohydrates. Phytonutrients, phyto means plant, so they're nutrients from plants. And most people are not getting plant-based carbohydrates in their diet. The phytonutrients are very important because they provide us with antioxidants. And antioxidants are what positively affect our metabolism, positively affect every cell in our body, help us avoid all the chronic diseases of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, helps people overcome fatigue, depression, digestive problems. They are really vital for everything to have a healthy body. So what we brought here is some common, more simple carbohydrates and some more sometimes not so common complex carbohydrates. So what do I mean by simple? The simple carbohydrates are these foods that are in much more simple form. If we can, they're more processed. There's a lot more sugar. They're not a whole food. And the majority of our culture is really gravitating a lot in these areas. Let's take, for example, sodas. The big thing about soda is there's virtually no nutritional content, and it's very high in high fructose corn syrup. Now, high fructose corn syrup is an item, a compound that a lot of people have confusion about. Fructose is from sugar. It's a natural forming sugar, it's from fruit. It's a natural occurring sugar in fruit. But high fructose corn syrup is not from fruit. It is from corn. And it's manufactured, it's a synthetic. And the body doesn't really know what to do with it. It doesn't break it down and utilize it like it does other sugars. And therefore, it actually promotes fat storage. So we have high fructose corn syrup in a lot of items. And I'm just picking up, it could be the salsa, the tomato sauce, the ketchup, certainly sugary items like cereals, and we got jelly beans here, and we have a devil's food. The other thing about these are that we have not evolved, and thank goodness we haven't, to identify and handle processed foods. A lot of them are not even food. There's a lot of plastics, there's a lot of chemicals, and there's essentially no nutritional value. So this is one of the big reasons why a lot of people are not feeling all that great these days. And a lot of people are having a tough time maintaining a healthy body composition, healthy body weight. So, these are going to negatively affect your blood sugar levels, meaning that when you eat these foods that are not whole foods, like we have grains, beans, broccoli, carrots, an apple, this is a whole grain brown rice. These foods here, first of all, have higher value of nutritional content. They have a higher fiber content. They're going to break down slower in your system to form glucose to utilize as energy. And that's better because if you're using these foods that have higher amounts of sugar, now you're going to have higher amounts of sugar in the bloodstream at a faster rate, and therefore your pancreas is going to stimulate more insulin to handle that high amount of sugar. And when the insulin levels become high, they actually become too high when you have an infusion of sugar in these forms, these simple forms. And therefore, it brings down your blood sugar level because that insulin is trying to handle too much sugar, bringing down the sugar level. And now, all of a sudden, you've got too much insulin, and so your body's craving for more sugar because there's insulin in there that's waiting to handle sugar. Does that make sense? So it's sort of simplifying the process. So in essence, people have a desire to eat more physically and even emotionally just based on the sugar and insulin response to these foods.
Unfortunately, they taste good.
They taste good, and what you want to try to do is have them at a minimal amount. I mean, when I sit down with clients, I try to get them off these foods because they're just not feeling well, getting them on whole foods as much as possible, and then, slowly going back into those if that's something they desire and they choose. Hopefully they don't, or if they do, to a minimum. But these are destructive to the cell membranes. They're destructive to metabolism. Again, they contribute to the development of chronic disease. So whole complex carbohydrates with fiber, with lots of nutrients, with lots of phytonutrients, which means they have lots of antioxidants, are where you want to go with the carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are great for energy. They help your brain have the energy to think. A lot of people are not eating in the morning time, and if they don't have some form of nutrients, especially in the form of carbohydrates, then their brain and their mental capacity is not going to be up to speed, and it's going to cause more stress in their environment as well as internally in the body.
And people don't think that they haven't eaten for 8 hours while they've been sleeping. So
right, exactly.
Getting up is really the time that you have to eat.
It's a real vital time because your metabolism is low when you get up because you've slept. And you want to assist the metabolism in getting up to a good amount for mental and for physical endurance. And food is a big component of that, especially in the morning.
So what are we getting rid of here?
So if we get rid of all the simple
refined
carbohydrates, the simple versus the complex.
Okay.
Now, one thing I want to mention before we put it away, pasta. Pasta is a very simple dish. We have tomato sauce. It's a breakdown. It's not a whole tomato. And we have pasta, which is made out of wheat. This is not a whole grain. Now, you did bring in whole wheat pasta, which is going to be higher in nutritional value than the non-whole wheat. But this, as opposed to these beans, these legumes, the whole brown rice, just want to point out that it's not as, this is more processed than this. So trying to have pasta minimally. Some people have pasta 5 days a week. Before I was a nutritionist, I used to have pasta all the time thinking it was a really good habit. Now I understand that it's much more processed than some of these whole grain items, whole complex carbohydrates, so I'm not going to have the nutritional value, so I have it much more minimally.
All right. So we can leave the good stuff on the table.
Yeah, okay. We can
Penne goes.
This is a success brown rice, a little bit more processed than the whole grain, longer cooking brown rice. We'll put that in. This is a coffee sweetener with high fructose corn syrup, a lot of
And
chemicals,
a lot of
plastics.
stabilizers in there, too.
Yes, and then as well as, a lot of people think these breakfast bars, a lot of bars out there, a lot of them have high amounts of sugar, high amounts of hydrogenated and trans fats, which we're going to get to. Not a good choice for most people. So we
Okay.
can keep the grains and the legumes, beans. These are all healthy for the blood sugar, healthy for the digestive tract, healthy for the cell membranes, healthy for the metabolism. Next item we'll look at is going to be fats, dietary fats. Now, a lot of people are confused about fats. First of all, low-fat diet does not promote weight loss. There's no scientific evidence that following a low-fat diet promotes long-term maintenance of healthy weight. There's been major studies published out there that have proven that. One a 10-year study. So we need fats to lose weight. We need fats to use fat stores as energy. We need fats to absorb fat-soluble vitamins in our system. We need it for temperature regulation. We need it to ingest the critical essential fatty acids in our body. And those are food sources that we do not get, we do not manufacture ourselves in our body. So let's look at some different fat sources of fats. This is we brought in some margarine and we brought in some butter. And we have some corn oil, and we have some peanuts, and we have some canola oil, and olive oil, and walnuts, cashews, and flaxseed, ground flax meal, coconut oil. Margarine is a food that is not advisable at all because of the hydrogenated trans fats. The hydrogenated trans fats are a liquid fat that have gone through a process of hydrogenation to make it more stable, more firm. It's really created for the food industry, not for nutritional value for people. It enhances the shelf life, but what it does is it has a very negative effect on our metabolism. It actually creates a lot of destruction in the cell membranes in the body, which are outside of the cells. So it hinders nutrients from entering into the cell, hinders water from entering into the cell. You need a very hydrogenated cell environment, hinders waste products from leaving the cell. Hydrogenated trans fats are probably one of the worst things you can put in your body. It's linked to a lot of chronic conditions. So you want to stay away from anything that says partially hydrogenated trans, they're plastics, they're not food. On the other hand, we've got something here that is hardened at room temperature. This is a coconut oil, and this is a naturally stable. There's nothing added to this to create the stability. If you warmed it, it would become oil. But right now it looks almost like a Crisco, which you don't want to be using Crisco. But coconut oil is actually a very good oil, even though it's a saturated because it's hardened. It's a plant-based oil. The lauric acids in in coconut oil have proven to be very beneficial for the immune system and in the digestive system. So I use this a lot in promoting the use of this with my clients. It's very good to use like with stir-fry vegetables. So coconut oil is a good choice.
Is that generally in the regular supermarkets, or do you need to get it in a...
I believe that a lot of the supermarkets that have the natural sections are now carrying this,
Okay.
but the natural food stores are also a very good source. You want to make sure when you buy this that you get the source that you can ingest, not the coconut oil that you put on your skin. There's two different types of qualities.
Okay.
And some people might not know that, so I just wanted to point that out. Butter, as we know, is from dairy. Dairy products have a lot of saturated fats. Saturated fats we want to minimize. This, again, is a saturated fat that's a healthy fat. So we want some saturated fats, but the healthy saturated fats. This is a saturated fat that can have negative effects on cholesterol levels in the body, on again, the cell membranes. And so at a minimum, you want to, let's see, I'm going to put this over here with the margarine and the coconut oil there. Now what we have here, a lot of people think corn oil is a good oil. The only problem with this is that it's not expeller pressed, meaning that there's chemicals and preservatives and even probably a high heat process that's utilized when they make corn oil. So it's not recommended to use, a lot of the corn oil also is genetically modified, and when you have a genetically modified crop, that means that the seeds have been treated to handle high pesticides without destroying the plant. So it can be sprayed to destroy the weeds around it, but not the plant itself. So this does not say, that it's non-genetically modified, which it probably is. It does not say that it's expeller pressed and that it's cold pressed. So that I would not recommend.
So sometimes you can't tell from the label.
Right, and there's a lot of corn additives in our diet, and corn is a problem with a lot of people, even though they might not realize that. This, on the other hand, you see it says expeller pressed organic canola oil. So that's something, there's different grades of canola. Some of them are not expeller pressed, some of them are not organic, some of them are going to be also genetically modified. But canola is a good oil to use for general cooking and baking. And we'll put this on the side over here. Flax meal is ground up flax seeds. It is a form of omega-3 fatty acids, which we do not get in our diet enough of in this culture. The only area where we get active forms of omega-3 are in fish oil. And we want active forms of omega-3 on a daily basis because they are natural anti-inflammatories. They help us with heart health. They lubricate the outside of the cell membrane, in a way so that it allows nutrients and water to get in and toxins to get out of the cell. We could spend a whole show on omegas.
They're great for your skin, too.
They're great for your skin.
Yeah.
They're very positive for the metabolism. They assist in avoiding all the major diseases, chronic diseases, cardiovascular cancer, and heart disease. I want people to understand this is a great fat to use. It's great for fiber content. You can add it to like yogurt or salads or warm stews or soups because you can powder it. You can grind it down into a powder form. I recommend all my clients to use flax meal, 1 or 2 tablespoons a day. But I want people to also know it's not the active form. There's one more step of conversion the body has to do in the form that this fat is in to create the active form of omega-3. And that's why I also recommend omega-3 supplementation every day, because we don't want to eat fish every day because of the contaminants in fish and the mercury content in fish. Fish is something we'll talk about when we get over here 2 times or 3 times a day. But so you can buy the seeds and grind them up yourself. You can already get it ground, which this product is. You can use it in baking. You can use it for muffins. This is a very good fat source. So we're going to put that with our positive fat sources.
Does it affect the taste at all?
It has a little nutty taste, the taste of flax. Not very strong. This is olive oil, and this is an extra version. We also want it to be cold pressed, expeller pressed, meaning that there's no chemicals, no heat, so we're not losing the nutritional value and we're not adding in pesticides or chemicals into the process. The Mediterranean diet, about 40% of the Mediterranean diet I've read, sometimes 40%, is based on olive oil, and I think this is one of the most positive pieces of the Mediterranean diet. It's a great oil for metabolism, for cell health. You can use olive oil. It's very versatile. You can use it in so many different ways. So that's obviously a very good and positive fat. We have peanuts here, which are a source of fiber and a source of fat. A lot of times I do not recommend peanuts based on certain symptoms that people have when they come in to see me. A lot of people don't realize that peanuts and peanut butter naturally contain a lot of contaminants. unlike any other nut or any other seed. And we do use a lot of peanuts in comparison to other nuts in our culture. So I get a lot of people off peanuts. If someone knows for sure that they don't have any problems, it's a very clean source of peanuts, very fresh, there's no digestive problems, there's no questions of allergies, then, you know, they can make their own choice. My choice would be not to use peanuts. Nuts are great, seeds are great. I would recommend other forms. Here's cashews. Cashews in the raw state.
Raw state.
They're a very healthy form of monounsaturated fats, and it's a plant-based fat, which most of these are. You want to use these as snacks or as a condiment on some of your meals. Usually tell people 1/3 of a palm is a serving. Cashews, almonds, macadamia nuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, all great sources of fats as well as fiber. So there are some of the fats that also have a dual purpose, a source of fat and a source of fiber. And you want to try to have fiber at all your meals. Fiber being in the form of grains, nuts, seeds, whole fruits or whole vegetables. Again, it's going to help control the blood sugar levels, the insulin levels. It's going to help with appetite control. It's going to help with the digestive system. And a lot of us have lost fiber in our diet too because of all the processed foods that we've put away. There's virtually minimal to any fiber content in processed foods or convenient type foods or any food that's not a whole food source. So any questions on the last one, and one of the most important ones, is this is an example of omega-3. They do come in a gel cap if you get them in a cap form, or you can get them in the liquid form. EPA and DHA are the abbreviated versions of the chemical names for the active forms of omega-3. The EPA is a natural anti-inflammatory. We all have some degree of inflammation, most of us do, in our body. If there's any imbalance, it means that there's inflammation. Balance equals inflammation, inflammation equals imbalance. So also the EPAs are very good for heart health. And then the DHA component of omega-3 is good for neurological health and for brain chemistry. Brain is mostly made up of fat. It needs a lot of DHA for its balance and stability and health. So recommending 15 milligrams a day, which is usually 2 to 3 gel caps of most of them. People need to make sure that the type of omega-3s that they're ingesting are manufactured where there are no contaminants. If you're picking up omega-3s from grocery stores or some of the commercial discounted stores out there, it's very likely that there are contaminants because there's no standardization in the manufacturing of those products.
Oh boy.
So people need to be aware and ask your nutrition expert or your holistic practitioner expert about what are good brand names for omega-3s. So we'll put that with the healthy choices of fats. And we can take away these fats here.
Okay.
Any questions about any of those fats, Peg?
I don't think so. All right, let's move on to protein. Move this over here.
Okay. And do you want me to bring these over there or just?
That's okay.
Okay.
All right.
Room here. Thank you. We only brought in a couple proteins because a large amount of the protein group is fish, chicken, meats. Proteins, first of all, are vital to our health. Whole proteins, as we're saying, with fats and carbohydrates. Whole food sources. Protein is a builder, repairer, and maintainer for the body. Your body's always breaking down and rebuilding itself, which is a very positive thing because we always have an opportunity to create a healthier body. You know, everything we're talking about is directly related to anti-aging as well, especially when you're looking at antioxidant, phytonutrient content, whole foods, organics, no chemicals. When you're eating that way, your body inside is going to be much more younger, metabolic rate's going to be much more efficient, and that'll be reflective of in the outside of the body. So the protein is very important for rebuilding tissue and muscle, the inner lining of the digestive tract, where a lot of people are having problems these days. This is how we mend it, through healthy protein eating and some assistance of some supplement products. It repairs any scratches, any cuts or scratches externally or internally in the body, and it maintains the body in a state of health. It's very important for maintaining the state of health, especially maintaining a healthy amount of muscle mass, lean mass, which is anything that's not fat in the body. And a lot of dieters or people that are trying to eat right have missed the concept around protein as well, because they've not been given the right information. You want a good amount of protein. You want it throughout the day. There's plant-based proteins and there's animal-based proteins. We brought a source of plant-based protein. This is also, some of these cross over into two different groups.
Right.
So the legumes, and this is a spicy southwestern soup, but it's mostly made up of legumes. These are lentils. Excuse me, I'm sorry, these are peas. They look like lentils.
They do.
There's peas and lentils and black beans and red beans. So these are legumes, and they are a great source of carbohydrate, protein, fiber, nutrients. Here is a little bit more of a processed form of legumes in the form of hummus. So they've taken chickpeas and garlic and some other great spices and herbs and grinded it down into a spread that you can put on crackers or bread. I just want to say, notice we didn't have bread here. I thought that was interesting. And I think we all kind of know bread is, there's a lot of people, sort of taboo. It's a very processed product that we all have overconsumed. If we're going to eat bread, whole grain breads are the best. A lot of times when I sit with people, they take bread away from their diet for a small period of time and see tremendous results in doing that, and there's different reasons depending on what's going on with them why that happens. But getting back to the protein, so hummus is a good source of protein. It also has carbohydrate and it has some fat in it as well. But you can use it as a source of protein. You can use beans as a source of protein, so we can move them over here right now while we're talking about it. We also have eggs. Eggs, a lot of people even still think that there's a problem with eggs because of cholesterol. Your cholesterol in your blood has nothing to do with the cholesterol in your diet. Dietary cholesterol does not affect blood cholesterol. What affects blood cholesterol is saturated fats,
Right.
hydrogenated fats, trans fats, and high amounts of sugars, processed carbohydrates. So again, that's kind of another day, another show in terms of looking at carbohydrates. Getting back to the eggs, eggs are a great source of omega-3s, especially when you get the omega-3 eggs. There's only about 2 grams of saturated fat in an egg, so we need some saturated fats. We want healthy saturated fats. We want small amounts.
We also have our meats, right?
Yeah, and then meats, we can utilize beef, we can utilize lamb, fish, the smaller fish, like small halibut, salmon. We want smaller fish because they're not taking in as many contaminants as the larger fish that are larger eaters. So fish, chicken, turkey, red meat, lamb, veal for people that eat meat. We want to keep, I recommend the animal sources of protein to a minimal. Don't base all your proteins on, especially red meats. Have a good amount of fish and beans and plant sources and eggs. One thing I want to mention about the protein is that if you can get organic, antibiotic-free, hormone-free, also grass-fed. Grass-fed has a lot less, something like 500 times less saturated fats than the animals that are fed by grains. It's going to manufacture more saturated fats in the tissue of the animal when they're fed with grains. So, as much as you can do around that when you're choosing protein is a great practice. And overall, you want to create meals that have all 3 of these nutrients, like we were chatting about the other day, with proteins, carbohydrate, fats, mixed in with all, because that's going to help create better satisfaction, better blood sugar levels, healthier insulin secretions, better metabolism, better body composition. You know, and again, when we sit in consultation and on a one-on-one basis, we look at more of the details of this. But, you know, as an overview, those are our 3 macronutrients, and hopefully people can gain some appreciation of the whole food sources of them.
Do you ever go into a client's kitchen and just
I have. I've had
throw
people,
everything out?
I've had people hire me to consult with them in their kitchens, and it's wonderful because they can see for themselves in their own home what they need to have less of or even take totally away.
Right.
And, you know, I've brought in boxes of substitutes that are the healthy substitutes.
Okay. We need to talk about defining organic
Oh, okay.
and organic, the difference between organic from California and organic from local farms.
Right. We were talking about this the other day, and it seems like a lot of people want to know, you know, where to buy organic foods. What are the
Right.
best sources of whole foods, farm foods? I'm a big promoter of eating as locally and regionally as you can.
Right.
So where would you find that food, first of all? In the local grocery stores, it should be labeled organic, and it should be labeled that it's local where it's from, or you could ask them. The natural food stores are very good about labeling, and they really get the majority of all their produce from New England or this immediate area within a 100-mile radius. You want to do that as much as possible because it's going to be picked off the vine in the ripened state.
Right.
And that means it's going to be at the highest nutritional value at the ripened state. It's going to get to the store within 24 hours, 48 hours max. And if you get to these stores, you know, once a week, then you're getting to you're buying the food within a few days, couple days of it being picked. And again, you're going to get it home. It's going to be at the highest nutritional value because essentially that's what we want, and that's what our bodies crave and need for food is nutrients, which it's lacking so much these days. If you buy an organic from California, yes, you're getting something that's organic. It's not going to be, you know, sprayed with pesticides and chemicals. So it's probably a better choice than something that's not organic.
Right.
But you've gotten something that was picked a week ago, and it's picked before it's ripened. It's not going to be as high in nutritional value. By the time you get it, it might be 2 weeks later than after it's been picked. So that's the big difference in eating locally versus eating from across the country. Some of the foods like berries that are frozen, organic, you know, that's a different story. They freeze it after they've picked it. It's in the high nutritional value state. Frozen comes to you, you know, you unthaw. Again, it's been frozen in the high value nutritional value state. So you have to look at each one of these individually. But the fresh produce, locally, organic, or just local farmers in general are usually very organically oriented.
Okay. I think we've covered the macronutrients, the whole foods, the definition of organic. Thank you very much for
You're
coming
welcome.
today.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to have you on our next show where we're going to talk about weight loss and,
Okay.
and special diets.
Great.
I'm looking forward to that too.
Super.
Thank you for watching. We hope to see you next time on Focus on Health.